This is Barbara Crampton, and you're listening to Without Your Head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by Tate Steinsiek, puppet designer and effects artist for Puppet Master, Littlest Reich, and a bunch of other cool stuff. That's streaming right now on Shudder. It's very cool to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, I guess, first of all, how did you get involved in Puppet Master, the Littlest Reich?
Well, it was a string of a lot of different connections, oddly enough. It was, I lived in New York for over 10 years, and I was repped by a company called Caliber Media. And so I didn't even realize that at one point Dallas was actually my boss, because I was repped by Caliber Media. But, I had an agent, so I never dealt with Dallas directly. And then you fast forward, 10 years in the future. I'm living in Oklahoma, and apparently he's left New York as well, and he moved to Texas. And then my agent, who moved on to Gersh, hit me up and said, there's a guy in Texas that you should really make contact with. So she gave me Dallas's number, and we sort of reacquainted and realized that, we'd been connected, very closely with 1 degree of separation for a long time. So it was really weird. We just kind of hit it off. He's a real horror, gore hound like me. So, everything we started talking about, we just hit it off. And then he asked me one day, he was like, we've got this thing called Puppet Master coming up. Ever heard of it? I'm like, have I heard of Puppet Master? Are you fucking kidding me? Of course. Yeah, let's do this. So, he said, we're going to change the designs, and, we're going to be obviously, faithful and respectful of the world, but we're going to, give our own sort of twist on things. So, it was a really cool proposition, take something as well known and sort of revered as these Puppet Master characters and designs and get to play with them. It was sort of a dream job.
Yeah. So who is your favorite puppet before you go into the movie?
As a kid, and that's so I'd have to say I'm a pretty hardcore Torch fan. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been Blade for Halloween many times as a teenager, and so I'm an all around fan. But if I had to pick one to fight on their team, it would have to be Torch.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. So I assume you were a fan of the Puppet Master series. Were you a fan of like all the Full Moon movies? Which I saw that you're doing a remake of Castle Freak, so I assume so.
Oh man, yeah, Castle Freak was one of my favorite films just in general. Not even like a Full Moon thing. When I was a kid, I found Castle Freak at the video store, and I think the first thing that caught me was the contrasting fonts. The very sterile and cold sort of, hard castle font, and then the loose, almost like graffiti-like sort of ripped Freak, and it just conjured all of these, weird different thoughts. And so I picked up the box and I looked at it and I see this weird, snaggletooth creature. And anyway, it became, one of my favorite films as a kid. It's an extremely dark film, especially for Full Moon, because I knew who Full Moon was at the time because I was a fan of the Puppet Master stuff. So you sort of think that, you're going to get something that's infused with comedy when you think Full Moon. I'd seen Shrunken Heads, and I'd seen, all of these amazing Full Moon films. So I get Castle Freak, and I wasn't ready for it as a kid. Like, it really twisted me up. So, the fact that I'm now directing a reboot on it so many years later, it's crazy. Well, it's equally as crazy as getting to redesign the puppets from Puppet Master. You know what I mean? It's like my I'm suddenly like a 12-year-old kid again, living as an adult. It's a pretty surreal and wonderful experience.
Yeah. So when you're creating the original puppets again, redesigning them, how do you go about doing that? And like, how are they made for the movie? Are they like the actual size compared to the people?
No, the puppets are, in Zoller's script, it called out for they sort of vary between 8 inches and like 12 to 14 inches. And, in some cases we went a little bit bigger than that just because you can get, better details with a little more scale. So we, most of them were like 12 to 16 inches tall. And, we just created, it was a real labor of necessity, there's always a crunch of time. There's always a fast turnaround, and whatever budgetary things you're dealing with, and so it was what can we make this for as good as possible and as quickly as possible. So the sort of school of thought that I adopted for this project was I'm going to treat most of these puppets with a digital sculpture, which in this world, it makes a lot of sense to me, because if you don't have the time to like sit there and perfect and articulate a sculpt that is, symmetrical and, has that toy-like quality, if you rush through it, it's not going to look like, something that's carved out of wood or hammered out of metal, or, the different materials that these puppets are supposed to be made of. So we opted to go with digital sculpture, because that way we could 3D print them and really literally finesse the symmetry on everything. And then we printed everything out and refined things and added details and remolded them, and that was sort of our process. And as far as the bodies, we had various different bodies. We had some animatronic bodies, servo-driven and RC-driven, and, we had some cable control stuff. But most of the puppets in the film were rod or hand puppeteered.
Mm-hmm. So how about for the new puppets you see in the movie? Like, do you get any guidelines for that, or is it just whatever you want to make?
As far as the new designs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I worked really tightly with Dallas and the writer, Zoller. Zoller's a madman, and he's a madman in the best of ways. As far as working with a writer or director from an effects artist perspective, because, generally you get a director that, they have a concept of what they want, but they haven't visualized it, because visualizing, like literal visualization of the concept, isn't what they do. They, they create the world, and it's up to the concept artist to create the creature that lives in it. So, the great thing about Zoller is he knows exactly what he wants to see. He'll tell you, I want nuts and bolts here. I want this sort of color with that patina. I want, think about, this in reference, 1940 something Germany, a gas tank, and, like all of these very specific references. And so it's great. There's no, everything is transparent. I know exactly what they wanted to see. So I would go into a design process of just illustrating, and, some of the designs we nailed in one, and some of them, took 20 tries. But, it was, it's always a fun process. The design process is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Is it better for you as a designer if someone is like that, more hands-on, and, explains what they're looking for, as opposed to not really having idea what they want, and you kind of have to do it all out of your own?
Well, there's risk and reward in either side of that, but the only thing that you just definitely don't want is the director that doesn't know what they want, because then you're right. It's your burden to bear, like, to work really hard to present them with the look, and then they go, yeah, no, I don't want that at all. And then you work really hard to present them with another look, and they're like, yeah, I like that, except not any of that. And what does that mean? Can you be more specific? So it's, a lot of directors will tell you, they'll look at your stuff and say, yeah, that's what I don't want. But, so, it's always nice when you have a director there's a lot of clarity. It's like, yeah, this is specifically what I want to see. Here is a list of references. Have at it.
Yeah. So did you do Udo Kier's makeup?
I did. Myself and my key on that film was a great makeup artist by the name of Ian Cromer. He's a Los Angeles guy, and he and I have worked together on several Fangoria and Cinestate films. But he and I double teamed that makeup, and that one turned out really good. It was really great, especially the before and after, because Udo didn't shave his head for that. He had a full head of hair, he had a full mustache, and that was probably like an 8 or 10 piece prosthetic series. So there was a lot of makeup going into that character.
Yeah. What was he like to work with? Because I assume you have to spend a lot of time with him when you're putting on the makeup. Yeah,
I mean it's Udo is one of a kind, man. He's he's constantly, like, he lives his life like he's on stage everywhere he goes, even if he's the only one in the room. It's almost like how you might imagine Elton John walking around his house, just waving to the adoring masses at all times. But he's an absolute Looney Tune in the best kind of way. I love the guy, and I hope I get to work with him again soon. But he's great for the makeup, because he's got so many stories. He'll just sit there and tell you stories for hours. And he and I have some common friends out of New York that go all the way back to, like, the Warhol days, and one of my good friends was one of Warhol's guys at the factory, and Udo actually knew him. So it was cool, man. He's a very approachable and fun to be around guy. We actually went out to a couple of conventions together, one in New Orleans in specific, and had a really good time. It's hard to keep up with that guy. For a man in his 70s, that guy can get down still.
Yeah, I've been around him at some conventions that I've been at, and I don't want to say anything about, but yeah, he drank a whole bottle of Tito's vodka at one convention I was at in like one day. It was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, he's got a healthy bladder for his age. He can still put him back just fine.
Did you work all with Barbara Crampton?
I did minimally. The only stuff that we did with Barbara was, her character got smashed in the face with a cinder block, and so we had to deal with a broken nose and, keeping blood continuity and stuff like that on her. So, actually, I take that back. She also did get stabbed in the throat. So there was that too. But no, I mean, Barbara's great. In fact, Barbara's one of my producers on the Castle Freak reboot that we're doing. Barbara and I work together multiple times a week. We're talking or conferencing or something about the upcoming project. So yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Well, when is that due to come out?
Because I was a huge fan of hers when I was a kid. So again, just to be like talking to Barbara on a weekly basis is just one of those what the hell moments.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites. I mean, Reanimator is one of my favorite movies, and then it's really cool to see her later in life do she's had a lot of great roles in the last 5 years or so. We were still there, we're still here, and. She's been killing it, and she has a lot of good stuff coming too. Yeah. So, how far along is the Castle Freak reboot?
Well, right now, we're anticipating shooting later this year, sometime in the summer, and there's not too much I can really give away about it. Everything is pretty shrouded in secrecy with this project for good reason. We've got a lot of insane and fantastic surprises for the fans out there. But what I can say is we are talking to some cream of the crop sort of talent, and our script from writer Kathy Charles I could not be more pleased with it. It's absolutely terrifying, and it just really breathes life back into that design. As a kid, I always wanted to see more Lovecraft. Always more Lovecraft. That's why I love Stuart Gordon. That's why I watched all of this stuff, because this guy knew Lovecraft, and he understood that this is like the root of real horror. This is like real, true American horror. And the opportunity. A lot of people don't even realize that Castle Freak is an H.P. Lovecraft story originally called The Outsider, or that's the name of the story that Castle Freak was based on, rather. But so having that opportunity to say, well, hell, let's blow the doors wide open and let's welcome Lovecraft back into this, cinematic realm. I could not be more excited. And, we have some real surprises for you guys. It's going to be good.
Yeah. It's Lovecraft, has been throughout, the history of movies, but it does seem like it's kind of it goes in and out. There was a time they made a bunch of them, in the late 70s, early 80s, and it seems to more of them lately in the last few years.
Yeah, man, there are certain weird caveats out there in horror, and it's like werewolves and Clive Barker and H.P. Lovecraft. It's like nobody can get any of that stuff right. You know what I'm saying? Very, very, very rarely does anybody get that stuff right. Stuart Gordon was one of the rare few, and, American Werewolf in London was one of the rare few, and, there's always people that break through, that can do something with it. Midnight Meat Train with Bradley Cooper. That was probably a better example of a Clive Barker story illustrated. But as a whole, it's just one of those weird things, and I don't get it. But that being said, I think now is the time that people like myself, my age group, people that, sort of, grew up on this stuff and grew up with the look and the feel of the 80s, like movies like Mandy recently, Panos Cosmatos. I mean, that guy is a beast, man. And it's the perfect time for films like that because, you know, we're all in our late 30s and 40s now. And, you know, and we're hitting that age where, you know, a little nostalgia isn't such a bad thing. This world is getting so absolutely unrecognizable. You know, fuck it, let's sit down and watch a VHS tape, you know. So, you know, it's the right time for us to all come together and make these, you know, sort of reminiscent films that we always wanted to see as a kid. And the fun thing is we can actually make it look like they came from that era too. So, yeah, it's a good time to be a filmmaker in horror, in my opinion. I think it's back pretty strong.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a viewer because I'm glad, you know, Mandy found its audience because it is such a bizarre film, but I absolutely loved it. I know some people don't like the beginning, they like the end, but I like the whole thing. I like the slow build and all the weirdness at the beginning, and then the total insanity at the end, and it all works for me.
Well, it's all very on purpose, and people that I like this part, I don't like that part. Well, you've already lost the battle. You already don't get it. You know, you don't take a movie in parts. You take the film, or you don't take it at all. It's a fantastic movie for the people that it's intended for. Everyone else, you know, like, you know, fish head soup is a very specific flavor. You know what I mean? Some people love it. Everybody else would probably throw up if you offered them some, you know? So it's not an indication as to quality or lack of quality. It's a specific, you know, type of people that film was made for. And that's why I love him as a director, because he doesn't say, okay, here's an opportunity for me to work with, you know, an actor the caliber of Nicolas Cage. Let me do something that I'm sure to make a shitload of money. No, he does the exact opposite. He says, let me take this fucking epic, you know, once-in-a-lifetime talent, and let me put him in, like, a late-night 70s sort of, you know, creature feature, hammer horror sort of, you know, picture show, and let's see what he does with that. And it was absolutely genius. You know, and now, in fact, you know, the big circle of the story is now, you know, Nicolas Cage is doing a Lovecraft film with that same company, with the company that produced Mandy. So, you know, it's, yeah, like I said, man, it's the right time. There's something cosmic happening, and that's not a Lovecraft pun.
Yeah. And just back to Mandy real quick. I love it's almost like in the middle with the Bill Duke scene where it's kind of like the lull between when things just go totally insane. And there's like a hinted at a backstory with him that they must know each other, but it's never explained. And I love everything about the movie, honestly.
Yeah, the same. Well, see, I was a big fan of Beyond the Black Rainbow as well. I thought that was an absolute masterpiece, you know. It was, and again, it was the same thing. People like it, they don't like it, you know, whatever. But it's. I admire filmmakers that don't bend to the dollar, and you know, it's a rough road, man, because you know you got to pay your bills. But you know, ever so often there's, you know, artists like Panos that come along and say, you know, fuck everything, and I'm going to make a piece of art. And you know, that's always been sort of my mentality as well, and that's also how I'm treating Castle Freak, man. This is not going to be your your average creature feature. There's a lot of beautiful things happening with this film.
I'm looking forward to that. I think it was last year I actually interviewed Hiroshi Katagiri's effects artist, and he talked about the first movie he worked on was Castle Freak, and he didn't do a lot in it, but he like made the prosthetic balls for the Castle Freak, and it was and so like he was telling. And like he told his parents that, hey, you know, the first thing I'm doing is making, you know, balls for this movie. So it was very funny.
What a wonderful first job on your resume.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing about the skills of special effects, man. Like just for example, I interviewed and hired a new guy for my shop the other day, and I was like, so what'd you do before this? And he was like, yeah, I made dildos. I'm like, oh, good. So you understand silicone casting, 2-part mold making? I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm like, you're hired. So you never know, guys. If you're out there and then you're stuck in a go-nowhere career of dildo construction, give me a call. I've got some positions open.
I will get the word out because I know many dildo makers.
Please do. Send out some emails for me, please.
Yeah. So I know you made shorts before. Will this be your first feature?
This is the first feature that I've directed. I can say I've directed. I mean, I'm credited as director on a previous feature, but it was, in no way mine. It was more so just, yelling action and cut and then turning the footage over. But this is the first time that from concept through delivery, like this was, my passion project. My visuals are being, honored and turned into something real. It's such a blessing, and that's why I love Fangoria and Cinestate so much. Is we've worked together on so many films. Well, actually, it's not even a lot. That's even speaks more highly to them. We've done 4 films together, and I've managed in that time to show them my how intense I am with visuals and my concepts and the ways that I develop things to the tune of them trusting me to direct a film for them. And so they're great people. It's a great company, and they have a great strategy and sort of philosophy about filmmaking. If you're going to piss some people off, then you're probably making the right film, because that's what film is there for. It's to instigate thought and instigate reaction. So and that's exactly the opposite of the first film that I did. It could have very easily fallen, silently into a Lifetime channel sort of rotation. You know what I mean? Absolute, flavorless. So it's nice to get into that world of heads rolling and disembowelments and catacomb-bound freaks chained and wailing for freedom. It's a lot more suited. But yeah, it's a fun thing, man. As an effects artist, you're always creating creatures, and it's so much more rewarding and fun to create the world that the creature lives in now. So, man, I wish I could give you a lot more details, man. We should definitely do a follow-up podcast together in like 4 or 5 months' time, when I can give you little bits and pieces. But right now, all I can tell you is that people will be pleased.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I love the first movie, and it would be cool to see a version of it. And it's a very wild movie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. So what were the movies that you watched as a kid that you specifically like creature stuff that you're like, well, this is what I want to do. I want to make these.
Well, it was Michael Jackson's Thriller was the first. Nice. I saw the behind the scenes with Rick Baker, and then that shit spun me as a kid, man. That was, the realization, because I've always been, I'd say obsessed with monsters, but it's more like inhabited by monsters. It's, I was drawing monsters when I was like 2 years old with crayons, like before I'd ever seen a horror movie. My mom still has these drawings of like these sharp teeth, like creatures with multiple eyes and horns, like vomiting blood and like biting heads off of my schoolmates. I'd have like a little arrow pointed and it would say Kyle and Laney and this is Naya, and all of my like preschool mates were headless. So my preschool teacher would call my parents in and say, "You guys really got to stop letting this kid watch horror movies." And my parents are like, "We're not. We don't know what to do with him. He's never seen a horror movie in his life, so yeah, we're going to look into medication." So I don't really know where it began or how or why, but it just did. And, so I went from there into, like, oddly enough, into the early Richard Band sort of world where, Troll and Ghoulies and, things like that, and Beastmaster. And, it's funny to realize how many names Charlie Band has his name on. Sorry, I said Richard, but Charlie Band has his name on. Like right here in my office right now, as a grown-ass man with a company, like, I'm looking at my Dungeon Master poster, like the video store poster, that says now with video cassette and Laserdisc, and that's his movie, So, Band was a big influence on me in a lot of ways other than Full Moon. But then, I found American Werewolf in London, and that did it right there, man. And then, I've always been a little bit of the dark comedy type. Like, my favorite movies are, of course, American Werewolf in London, which is heavily comedy-based, Turn of the Living Dead, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. You know, these are a creep show. And, you know, these are the films that.
It's one of my favorite.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, there's a certain aesthetic, and which is really bizarre because when I make films, I want them to be absolutely as humorless and depraved as possible. But because for some reason that shit makes me laugh, which also might speak to a need for medication. But all I know is that I enjoy seeing things die and finding humor in it somehow. And so your only option, you know, as a kid, if that's, you know, the conclusion you come to, is either, you know, filmmaker or serial killer. So, you know, I definitely made the right choice.
Yeah. Actually, I have the Creep Show right here on my shelf, and the original Clamshell is the first VHS tape my mom bought me as a kid. So, my favorite movies.
That's
looking forward
awesome.
to the show, too.
Well, here, let's see what's sitting on top of my Blu-ray player right now. I'll give you a little behind the scenes into my world. Okay, so we've got Darkman, Return of the Living Dead, The Lost Boys, and Mandy, both Blu-ray and DVD. So there you go. That's my past few days of Blu-ray usage.
And I always think, because I brought this up before on the show, is in my opinion, the best horror comedies, the horror has to work as horror too. You know, it can't be too schlocky. So, because the horror is awesome in Return of the Living Dead, and it's awesome in American Werewolf in London. I think that's what holds up as the best transformation scene.
Yeah, no, these are solidly scary films. You know, Creepshow scared the shit out of me as a kid, but it also cracked me up. You know, it's and these are important things. You know, like, you know, it's fun. But then I found humor in things like Eraserhead too as a kid. You know, so when you see the little sperm baby squiggling across the floor, I don't know why a 4-year-old me found that hilarious, but yeah, man, it's all about the viewer. It's all in the eye of the beholder, and what we find funny and humorous and great, and, you know. But that's the great thing about film, you know, and that's also the great thing about making a film. I can't wait to go sit in the theater for the screening of Castle Freak. I may even grab a chair and put it up against the screen and face the audience and watch them. You know what I mean? Because it's more about, like, who screams and who laughs, and the dichotomy of that, and, like, watching expressions, and, you know, I don't know, that's what addicts me to filmmaking, you know, just seeing how powerful it is, and what you can do to someone, how you can manipulate and play with them. And man, one time I screened a film of mine called The Devoured. It was a short film that, you know, really only saw the light of day in the festival circuit, but it was you know, starred Peter Green, who played Dorian in The Mask, and, you know, Redfoot and The Usual Suspects. He was playing a cannibal in an underground ring of high society cannibal dining weirdos that would perform different, you know, procedures on each other. And in one particular scene, called The Cleansing, was this procedure that the guy wanted, basically a eunuching, a wake eunuching, and then, you know, of course, Hungry Man, which is Peter Green's character, would prepare the offering up with, you know, a little brown butter and some truffles and rosemary, and as one does. But the whole thing, the whole eunuching aspect of the film, it happens just below frame. I didn't show it. There was no gore. There was no blood. It was all sound design and reaction. And I remember a guy passing out at the screening. Like, it was a standing room event. There was no chairs. So we were all kind of like at a concert, standing there watching it. And I remember this guy falling backwards and his friends having to catch him. And he could have swore that he, with his eyes, saw a dick get cut off. And, like, he was telling me how messed up it was, and, like, why would I ever do that? And I'm like, my friend, I assure you, you did not see that. You know what I mean? And that's the great thing about film. It's also like, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. You know, people talk about, you know, one of the goriest films of all time. I'm like, really? Show me some blood. You know, show me. Where's an intestine? Show me something gory. It's all the effect that the film creates on the viewer, and, you know, it's a powerful thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different kind of movie, but even like the first Human Centipede, a lot of people think it's so disgusting, but now the later ones are very graphic. But the first one, it's not really graphic at all. It's just kind of all in your head that these horrible things are happening.
Yeah, and then part 2 came along and
Right,
made up
and then
all of
it
that
totally
lost
reverses that.
graphic.
Right, exactly.
Man, I tell you what, to me, the Human Centipede Part 2 is a masterpiece. And I say that also thinking that the first one isn't great. That's the really weird part, and that's what almost speaks even higher of part 2. Is I'm not a giant fan of the first one. I mean, it's fun for what it is. It has its thing, but part 2, the way that it tapped into, I mean, it was just such a more honest story. It's like, this is the world we live in, where there are weirdos out there that get obsessed with shit like this, and can't define that line between reality and fantasy. That's literally the world we live in right now, and that's why that movie was scary, whereas the first one was not.
Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of both of them, but second one is a great movie, and it's weird if you ever read the Roger Ebert review of it. He says that like Tom Six found like a mentally handicapped guy and put him in the movie. So the first time when I was going to meet Lawrence Harvey, I was like, wow, I don't know if I want to meet this guy. Because, why would Roger Ebert make something? And, he's like this very charming, well-educated New English guy. And I was just like, I don't know where Roger Ebert got this.
Lawrence Harvey is like a Shakespearean-trained actor. They just choose to put him in his underwear and make him roll around in shit, That's just where he ends up on camera for some reason. But the guy is like, that could not be Roger Ebert. No disrespect, bro, but you missed pretty big on that one.
Yeah. And I actually hosted they showed all 3 of the Human Centipede movies in Syracuse. I hosted the event, and I dressed as Martin from part 2. It's not the most flattering look, but I had a good time.
Oh, yeah, but also one you don't forget. Dude, I've been to 10,000 conventions, and, like, I've seen every good cosplay, every bad cosplay, and bar none, the best one I ever saw was, I saw this guy that had a nude leotard, like a flesh-colored leotard, with pierced nipples glued to the outside, and a little merkin between his legs, and he had the Buffalo Bill, like, wig cap on, and the scarf, and he was just like backwards walking with his legs stuck together all over the convention floor. And like, I mean, he wins convention forever with that costume. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Did you at least
like
smear some brown on you, since that is the only color in the entire film?
I did not. But yeah, I'd mentioned that to Lawrence. It's almost like now I forget the name of the movie.
Oh, Schindler's List?
Schindler's List, right. And then Lawrence had said that was Tom Six's joke. Like on set, they called it Schindler's List.
That's fantastic. No, see, that's such a great. Well, sorry guys, that's like the big spoiler is you see Brown in the end.
Right.
But it's worth the wait. Anyone that hasn't seen Human Centipede Part 2, Lawrence Harvey is an absolute animal in it. You guys do yourself a favor and go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. They put out a color version recently. While it does look cool, and it's cool to see both versions, the black and white one I think holds up. It's more interesting.
Oh, I would hate to even see the other one because it was just such a statement to this poor unfortunate person's reality. Was that black and white monotone look, so it was, I think I'll skip the color version. Plus, the big brown reveal, that's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, it takes away from that. Yeah, definitely. So were you at any of the festival screenings for Puppet Master?
Yeah, I went to a few of them. Let me think. Where did I go? Went to New Orleans for the Overlook. There was one in Oklahoma City. There was back to the festival stuff. I went to a few festival screenings of Puppet Master, and it was always the same result. My favorite part. Have you seen the movie?
Yes. Yeah. I saw it when I was at Fright Fest in London, and then I saw it again on Shudder, and I've seen it a few times now.
Okay, cool. All right, I just didn't want to spoil anything, but all right. So the pregnancy scene. My favorite part about going to a screening of Puppet Master: The Littlest Reich is the second that the camera tilts down and you see the fact that this woman is pregnant. It takes like a two count, like 2 beats, and then suddenly this groan happens across the audience in the room. And dude, we haven't done anything but shown a sleeping pregnant woman yet. You know what I mean? But everyone already knows. And that again is the power of cinema, man. Like, we haven't even done it yet, and they can't deal with it, you know? And that's oh my God, that scene was so much fun to shoot. There's so many horror stories about, the behind the scenes of pulling that moment off from the, building of a fake bed, and how many people can we stuff in there to operate the puppets, and the fake, legs of the woman, to, holy shit, we need some amniotic fluid because the placenta just broke, and obviously the baby would be moist. So what do we got? So let's run to craft service, and it's taco day. And so we're like, okay, taco day. So we're looking at this queso, and we're like, that queso, man, that queso could work. A little bit of pigment, a little bit of blood, we can make that work. So we all high five and think, we solved the problem of the year, and then we have to get back on set under these cooking lights in a Texas summer in a hotel with no air conditioning, an abandoned hotel. So it's like 140 degrees in there, and we have to look down this baby hole in the center of a woman, down to where we can see my effects guys, my little puppeteer buddies, down under this bed. So they're basically in an oven that smells like body odor, and they're baking. And I have to tell them that we're going to start dumping queso in momentarily, so brace themselves. I can't even tell you what the smell on that set was like. It was, to this day, my buddy Eric Zapata, who was our lead puppeteer, can't be around queso. And it's really unfortunate because he used to love it, but it makes him sick every time he's around it because of the smell. And so anyway, it's a fun little joke on set, the go get the queso. If you're ever in need of some sort of slimy body fluid, usually queso can do it.
Yeah. It's like get the butter from Last Tango in Paris, get the queso.
Yeah, dude, you would be. I'm telling you, and see, I learned this from Tom Savini himself. Tom Savini specifically told me, he was like, if you're ever short, head straight to the craft service table. And at first I'm like, why, Tom? What do you mean? And he's like, do you know how many brains in Dawn of the Dead were like bagels from Crafty? Bagels mashed up in like strawberry jam, like things like that. You don't think about things like that. Like half of the zombies might be made out of cornflakes and latex. You never know. But that's the thing. Craft service, man. You throw throw a granola bar and chomp it up, and some gummy worms, and a few other things, some coffee grounds. Shake it all up. Suddenly you have some pretty gnarly shit that you can throw on somebody.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Tom Savini, because I actually thought of him when you said that, because when I interviewed him, he said the fondest he ever had when making movies was either when they didn't have like a big budget, or before like he really knew how to make certain things before it became like a technique, was just like thinking on your feet and finding weird ways to do whatever you were going to do.
Oh, absolutely, man. I do a lot of Q&As and stuff, and speak to makeup things, and one of the recurring questions is what do you look for in an effects artist if you're hiring or crewing, or what kind of abilities and stuff. And without fail, my answer always is abilities can be taught. I can show you how to do anything, but what you can teach somebody is how to troubleshoot and how to think on your feet. It's literally what Tom said. That's That's the truth. You have to be, if you can think your way out of positions, I can teach you how to make a mold. It's that the common sense that really is like, the strongest weapon of a good effects artist, because, if it can go wrong, it will. It will. It's very rare that you make it through a production where things are just, going perfectly all the time. Yeah. And, that's kind of the big, the grand reveal of things is a lot of people don't realize how, behind the scenes, how hard this stuff is. They watch Face Off and they think that it's it's all, hair dye and tattoos and holes in your jeans and looking cool as shit while you make a monster. And it's like, dude, no, you don't look like that in the shop. You're wearing shitty old latex covered, coveralls. And it's 110 degrees in your shop, and you're 4 days behind schedule and $100,000 over budget. Like that's the reality. So it's so funny watching kids come into my shop, like when I hire new people, and then they see this entire insane world of filmmaking, and they're like, "Man, I didn't expect all this." I'm like, "Yeah, most people don't."
Yeah,
but
I know you were on. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, go on. I'll ask you after.
Oh, I was going to say the funny part of it is much like I'm sure this is sounding right now, a constant stream of complaints. Like if I'm talking to my family or something about a project, I generally sound like this, and my mom or my dad will be like, "Why don't you quit? Why don't you do something else?" I'm like, "Are you crazy? I love this. What are you talking about?" They're like, no, it doesn't sound like you love it. Do you hear yourself? I'm like, I'm just I'm just talking about I couldn't see myself doing anything else. That's the crazy addictive thing about filmmaking, man. You're making something that, whether it's good or bad, it's going to live forever. It's definitely going to live a lot longer than you are. So there's a really cool sort of like legacy thing about it.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get on Face Off?
Well, I got lucky because I was season 1, so there wasn't like some big audition process. It was just, they called up a handful of artists from New York and a handful of artists from LA that had, I guess, they were able to, hunt down or had made a name for themselves. I'd been working in New York for about 5 years at that point, and I had a shop on the Bowery. We were doing some pretty cool stuff. We were doing a lot of stuff for the History Channel at the time. So they called me and they were just like, "Hey, are you into this concept?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing." Getting to, make, industry standard shit on somebody else's dime. That's hell yeah. Sign me up. I don't care about the money or winning or anything. I just want to make 10 creature suits, and not have to pay for it. I went into Face Off, completely without expectation. I went into that. In fact, like I went in there trying to learn, because I didn't know a lot. I'm, for the most purposes, self-taught. I took a few like a semester's worth of classes at Tom's school, way back in the day, but, I started thinking about Tom and I forgot what the hell we were talking about.
Face Off and how you got on. You said you got on there. Yeah. Part of it was to learn new stuff.
Oh yeah, man. Sorry, that makes a lot of sense. Why I would have forgotten about that. That show traumatized me, so my brain instinctively tries to block it out. This is, and for any Face Off producers out there or any Face Off contestants that might be listening to this podcast, I'd love for any of you that experience the same symptoms to call me and let's talk about this. But I still have nightmares, man, that it's the final day and we're in the lab and it's application day and everyone is gluing their pieces down and I realize that I haven't even started my sculpture yet. And it's this weird sort of like walking in quicksand reality of just like dread and terror of knowing that I'm going to fail miserably. And it's such a weird, So anyway, at a certain point, the goal became to win the money so I could afford the therapy that I knew I was going to need after the show. Unfortunately, I didn't win it. So, I didn't get the therapy. So, yeah. So now I make horror films and kill people on camera.
Right. So I actually had a group of people on, makeup artists, and they talked like bad about people that were on Face Off. Like I guess some people look down on because they think of like a shortcut, I guess, or something. Did you experience any of that? Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I heard about a lot of people experiencing that. Not me personally, because I don't live inside this industry. I chose never to move to Los Angeles. You know what I mean? I never wanted to get into that rat race to just get into a building that had a title that legitimized me as an artist. You know, I always wanted to just do things myself. So I never had to encounter all of the, you know, the face-off hate, although I heard a lot about it. But, you know, listen, man, it's very simple. There's always going to be people that wish they had more charisma that don't. And they may be the most talented fuckers in the world, but if they can't do something other than just be talented, they're just going to sit there and be talented and silent, and no one will ever see them. And you need to, you know, try and stimulate yourself to go a little further. But, you know, that's ultimately what it comes down to, man. It's like, you know, it's just like a band or anything else, you know, like you hear about this one-hit wonder. They came out of nowhere, and then you find out that, you know, they've been a shitty punk band for 25 years. You know, it's like, you know, there's nothing one-hit wonder about these face-off artists. Connor McCullough has been an industry giant for 15 years. Like, you know, Gage Munster just got off of, you know, being the head of the Nun. You know, like that's the thing. It's a lot of people just hate because there's something to hate about, man, and that's what's wrong with, honestly, our entire planet these days. You know, there's no more unity, especially in this industry, man. There's a lot of nut cutting, and people look for reasons to point their finger and wag it at you, and it's just weird. This is the entire reason why I've chosen to do things my own way my entire life. Everyone's like, "You're an effects artist and you live in Oklahoma?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it's awesome because I don't have to deal with any of the politics or the drama or any of that. I just make monsters, I just make movies, and I'm fucking happy as I can be.
Yeah, that's very cool. I also do a wrestling podcast, and people that were on the show Tough Enough get this. I kind of think it's the same kind of idea. It was a reality show where people, you know, train to be wrestlers, and then they get noticed, and other wrestlers would, you know, knock them for that because of like they didn't pay their dues or whatever. But it was the same kind of deal, just kind of another way to get noticed. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's an opportunity, you know, and it's
right.
Listen, it's like the times that we live in. It's an opportunity that, you know, if people had it, you know, 50 years ago, they would have taken it 50 years ago, but it wasn't there. And, you know, there's all now these days, I feel like if Face Off came out today, like there wouldn't have been nearly that like internal industry hate, because now the whole world is conditioned to fuck half of your friends being an ex-reality star or coming off of some game show or something. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, it's almost common. It's as common as being an Instagram model. Like, you know what I mean? Like, literally everyone has been on a reality show at this point. So I feel like these days people get it. It's an opportunity. It's a chance for people that have a specific skill to get, you know, a better chance. You know, I wish, you know, that there was an opportunity like Face Off 20 years ago, because, you know, I would have become an effects artist when I was 15, not when I was 25. You know, and that's the really cool part of this, man, is, you know, doing these conventions and traveling around. I see kids that are like 12 years old that have been watching Face Off their whole life. You know what I'm saying? And like, they're already sculpting, and they're like, when I grow up, I'm going to get an Oscar. And like, and they're probably right. You know, I guarantee you I've met a future Oscar winner, and because of Face Off, and it's because it stimulates it. It gives them something to inspire to be. You know, it's like American Idol, man. There's kids that are coming out that are like 6 years old now that sound like Celine Dion. It's fucking insane. But and also on the tip of like fighting, you know, I'm a huge MMA fan. You know, 15 years ago, you know, Chuck Liddell was the example of, you know, the pinnacle of fighting. And now, because of like The Ultimate Fighter, you know, there's kids that are 18 years old that have literally been fighting their entire lives. And these are the really scary guys, like the guys that you can't get in a bar fight with because they'll kill you, you know?
Right.
But it's all an evolution, man. It's an opportunity to do something. And I think everyone should always take opportunities like that and just shut up the haters, because there's always going to be plenty of those guys.
Yeah, I've interviewed some of the guys from the early days of UFC, like Ken Shamrock and Dan the Beast Severin, back then it really was mixed martial arts, like different people from different things, but then it really became like people trained specifically for MMA. Like that's its own style now.
Exactly. And that's the crazy thing. It's now you have to be that well-rounded. You have to have all of those elements of fighting. And I have to say, man, the industry might have been a little miffed for a while, but the next 10 years, they're going to have some badasses coming in applying for jobs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen so many kids, and see, that's the thing. I did this, there's this convention circuit called Walker Stalker. It's different people from The Walking Dead and cast and crew and stuff like that. And I did a couple of years with them, and I actually saw and met kids that would come in, and each time they'd show me their portfolio, the next year show it to me again, and I'd start following on Instagram. And now some of these kids are like 18, 19 years old, and they're badasses. Like, they have like 7,500 or 10,000, Instagram followers, because they're really good. And all of that is because of Face Off and what Face Off did. So, yeah, again, not to go off on a super tangent. It's just, it always bugged me, those people, those stupid Facebook trolls, man, that were, really cutting into a lot of the Face Off people, because, man, it takes balls. It takes balls to get on a stage in front of Oscar-winning people who are there to judge you, and then also know that you're going to be on television to be mocked. It takes balls just to be there.
Yeah. So I just recently saw Dragged Across Concrete, and not because I was going to interview. I didn't know you had anything to do with it until I was looking at your IMDb page. What was that like to work on, and what stuff did you do?
Oh, well, any and all things gore. That was me, and that was my buddy Ian, who I spoke about earlier. So I don't want to give any spoilers.
Sure.
But it was absolutely. Well, again, that's Zoller. That's the same writer. The guy who wrote Puppet Master is also the writer and director of Dragged Across Concrete.
I didn't realize that. I love all his films, actually.
Yeah, Brawl in Cell Block 99, Bone Tomahawk. Awesome. He's legit, dude. He's a madman. But we did all of the gore and stuff on that film. Anybody that dies or gets hurt or blown to bits, that's us.
Yeah. When you work on like non-genre stuff, or even I know that's not a horror movie, but still is gore and stuff. But like when I know you did some stuff with like Saturday Night Live, do you get the same like pleasure out of that, or like what's the motivation when you're doing something like that?
I mean, I only want to take jobs that give me something fun to do, like, I mean, I've cut off so many heads, I've slit so many throats, I mean, sure, it's still fun. And like, at that point, you're just kind of looking for something to gripe about, to be honest. It's always fun to go cut someone's head off, if I'm being perfectly honest. But the artist in you wants to be challenged, of course. And so, when Dragged Across Concrete came my way, well, first of all, just get to work with somebody like Mel Gibson or Vince Vaughn or, Jim Carpenter, Michael White, Thomas Kretschmann. These are all, amazing talents, man. And so, there's that aspect. It's like, cool, I really want to check out this, sort of film. What's it like to work on this kind of film? But then also, when you remove that element of horror, it binds you a lot more to reality as far as how you deliver your gore. Somebody gets shot in Dragged Across Concrete. Well, I can't, make their head explode like it's Kill Bill. It has to be rooted. You know what I'm saying? Has to be rooted in something real. And that's also something that Zoller impressed on us. He was like, when a face blows open, I don't want to see red. He was like, I want to see white and yellow and pale pastel pinks. I want to see iridescent purples. He wanted to see anatomy. And he didn't. And in fact, there are times that we did some really gross stuff in that film, and he didn't want blood at all. He was like, nope, no blood, no blood, just the wound, just the gag. And that's Zoller, because he knows that the way blood is kind of like a veil. Blood is a movie tool to sort of blind the audience from, what things actually look like. I don't know if you've ever been around like massive body trauma, like as it's happening on yourself or somebody else, but you don't bleed like you would think. I've seen people like, have their arms degloved, like at the tricep down to the elbow. And there was little to no, I won't say no blood, but you saw all of the tissue. You saw all of the colors, and there was, it was not what you expected when you see an arm turned inside out, but the body only, it doesn't bleed like that, so, and if you're paying attention to real anatomy, and then you have, ninjas like Zoller come along that know what the human body is supposed to do. Those are what makes things fun. Let's establish a new set of rules. Let's be authentic, let's make this look like a trip to the mortuary, not, a trip to some sort of horror film. It's anyway, Zoller was a fantastic person to work for, man. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah. So Littlest Reich is on Shudder. How important are the streaming sites for independent horror movies?
Oh man, they're extremely important because they give the independent filmmaker the ability to get their work out there these days. There was a long time when the internet, it was a big question mark whether or not, this is going to be good or bad for things like filmmaking and the music industry and things like that. And, I think that a lot of that is still being worked out on a big corporate level. But for the small artist or the small filmmaker or musician who's just in search of a platform, streaming media it's a godsend, not to date myself, but I started out in music before I found film, and I was in a touring metal band for a long time. And, we were right as the internet came out was when we were, dealing with record labels and trying to build fan bases. And dude, I'm talking about going to Kinko's and printing out quarter sheet flyers and walking up and down the street and passing them out. You know what I mean? Like people don't understand what they have these days just with something like a YouTube channel. It's such a fantastic option for artists to just get it out there, but just hopefully kids don't take it for granted and they utilize the fact that they can, for not a lot of money. I mean, hell, you can shoot a movie on an iPhone these days and it looks amazing. Yeah, it's true. Do you know if there's any plans to do any more in that particular series of Puppet Master movies, like a sequel to Littlest Reich? Yeah, well, there's yes, there has been. Oh man, I can't remember what I'm supposed to say and not supposed to say about that, but I can say yes. Right, there is, and I'll say this. I know I can say this because it's there. There are clues as to what the next offering in this Puppet Master universe. There are clues in the animated title sequence.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you guys go on a little Easter egg hunt and see if you guys can come up with some theories. Feel free to send them to me at illwilled.com, and I'll tell you how terribly wrong you all are.
That's very cool. I actually just saw there was someone was sharing a link that title sequence is becoming much more rare in movies, which is disappointing to me.
Man, it's one of the best. I mean, what do you remember when you think about the TV show Tales from the Crypt?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly Tales from the Dark Side. These are the things that are ingrained in us. That this generation, man, they got to get right to the action scene. You know what I mean? Or they lose interest. It's stupid. It's the Michael Bay syndrome, man. Like, if I give kids epilepsy at a young age, then they will settle for nothing less than epileptic films. So there are guys like us that would sit there and watch a 30-second title sequence because it looked cool and it had cool music. And definitely the school of thought that I'm trying to bring back with in Castle Freak, and I know that it's the entire spirit that Fangoria Films and Cinestate are trying to bring back, is that time when you're flipping through the channels at 1 o'clock in the morning and you hit that UHF dial and you get some random weird, art house horror film. And, I remember that's how I found The Warriors and shit like that. Watching The Warriors when you're a kid on TV, it's a feeling that you don't get anymore with movies, man. You feel like you're just digesting a product and then on to the next. And, we're trying to put a little soul back in it, man. A little reason for all of the efforts that we're putting into making these films.
Yeah, it reminds me of my webmaster Tyler is always yelling at me for playing the whole theme song at the beginning of the podcast or playing like a 30-second clip of it on my videos. He's like, you gotta have like 8 seconds to get right into it. I'm like, I kind of like the theme song, but
no, consider it consider it like a barometer for assholes. Like, if you, here's an example. Are you familiar with a band called Mr. Bungle?
Yes, I am actually. Yeah, a friend of mine was introduced me to it.
Yeah, I went to a Mr. Bungle show in I think it was Connecticut, like 15 years ago, and so the band comes out on stage. And Trey, the guitarist, kicks his amp on and then flips his guitar around and leans it against the amplifier until the feedback just takes over the PA system and starts reverberating and echoing in this hall. And then the band walks off stage and they leave. And they left that feedback going, I shit you not, for like 15 minutes. It cleared out half the room. They came back and they took their instruments and put them on, and they said, this is for you, and they played their set. It was for the fans that stayed around. It was for the right fans, and that's the whole point, man. If you want your theme song to be 45 seconds, you play a 45-second theme song, man, because the people that are left at the end of that, they're the right people. Brilliance isn't meant for everyone, man.
So I have to ask you a question here from Seb Godin, who's a friend of mine, and he makes really cool monster movies himself in Canada.
Nice.
And he wants to know which puppet was the most fun to redesign. And he's a big fan of the movie, by the way.
Let's see. Oh, cool. Well, thank you. And let's see. I would have to say the most, to stay literal to the question, the most fun to redesign would have been Tunneler. Because even as a kid, actually, no, I take that back because, I did like Tunneler as a kid. I guess I'll say Pinhead, because definitely as a kid, Pinhead, I felt, I thought that the hands were too big, even though that was his whole thing. I remember as a kid thinking that the head and the hand ratio is I would do something different. And that was the coolest part of doing this is, as a kid, I actually did have these thoughts because I was a little artist. I was always sculpting and making things and anyway as a kid. And I was able to actually do something about those thoughts that I had as a kid later in life. And I redesigned Pinhead and then changed the hand-to-head ratio. Obviously his hands are still giant, but they're not human-sized hands with like a thumb-sized head. So just little aspects like that. And again, that's not talking shit on anyone else's designs or these iconic characters. It was just purely a taste standpoint. What would I do? The same as redesigning Tunneler. His face always had this sort of grin to it, and I thought stoic would be scarier. Now, obviously, any little fucking puppet running at you across the floor is going to be terrifying. But if it was just staring at me, emotionless, I feel like it would get like a literal like high-pitched shriek out of me, instead of just a normal scream. It would feel like it was going to do worse to me once it finally got here. So I went into that idea, making all of the puppets much more stoic in their facial expression.
Yeah. And you mentioned that toys, because I've watched horror movies since I was a little kid, and not to be a tough guy, but they usually don't scare me. But the things that have scared me usually like toys in movies. And I think it's because I always have a lot of action figures. But in your opinion, what is it about like small monsters or creatures or toys that make that are scary?
Well, I think you nailed it on the head. They're things that we as children become accustomed to being, or there's eyes on us at all times. We're surrounded by dozens and dozens of little eyeballed figures looking at us. You know what I mean? And like you got to pray that they don't all just all of a sudden stand up and start staring at you, in the middle of the night. And, so I think that the very root concept of that, it's like I remember when I was a kid, watching. It's so funny, man. And again, speaking to the power of the lens of cinema, like all you got to do is put something in a frame and it becomes scary because you can look in your room at a wall full of toys and it doesn't freak you out. But then you look at the scene in Poltergeist where those clown dolls are sitting against the wall, and some shit's about to go down. You know what I mean? Like there's something, I don't know what it is, man. It's almost like the human psyche knows like that which is supposed to be harmless. When you put it into a horror setting, that's probably going to be the shit that comes and gets you. You know what I mean? So the more benign the product, the more benign the subject, the more chances it is that that's what's actually going to be stabbing you by the end of the film.
Yeah. Because I always thought the scariest trailer ever is Magic. It's just like about 10 seconds long. It's the ventriloquist dummy doing the little the little poem.
With Anthony Hopkins. That stuff twisted me as a kid, man. I remember being afraid of that trailer when I was a kid.
I was too. I mentioned it on the show many times, and we had a ventriloquist dummy. It was like I forget the name of it. Not Oscar. But anyway, we used to be able to send for it like in the comic books. And my brother's older, so he would tease me with it because he knew the trailer freaked me out.
Well, understood why, man. That one did something to me as well. There's several images that are burned into my head. Movies that I shouldn't have seen when I was a kid. That's definitely one of them. The scene where the monkeys are attacking the Elephant Man. That's another one that I shouldn't have seen as a kid. That one stuck with me bad. That one got me. But I think that the biggest scar that I had was Zelda from Pet Sematary.
Oh my God! I just mentioned this on my Facebook. I still think that's one of the scariest images in any movie.
Man, and it's the only time that I've got up and said nope, and literally run out of a movie theater. My dad was chasing me. Hey, come back. And I'm like, no, Dad, no. And it was years before I figured out. It's a part of the reason that's so damn creepy is because there's something wrong and you know it. And I didn't realize that it's because it's a male actor playing the female Zelda. It's for years I didn't realize that it was a male talent playing that character. And then you start to notice like all of these cool, sort of, like those how creepy those are, like Meg Mucklebones in Legend. It's like that was the big green witch in the swamp that was trying to eat Tom Cruise. Like that witch was performed by a man, and that was also a character that just couldn't take it when I was a kid. Too much. But, anyway, so Zelda, man, she's in fact, I'm going to go see that. Have you seen the new Pet Sematary yet?
I haven't. I'm actually going to go see it tomorrow.
Yeah, same. I will too. So we'll do a follow-up, whether it's good or not.
I know some people, it's like you either have to like one or the other. I'm not like them, and if I like a new one, doesn't mean I don't like the first one for some reason.
Exactly.
But the first Pet Sematary is like one of my favorite King horror adaptations. I think it's great on like every level. It has like this dread throughout the whole movie. Everyone seems like cursed, and it's great performances by everybody. So I don't know, even if it doesn't top that, it still could be good.
Well, I couldn't agree more. The original Pet Sematary, I watched it like once a day for like more than a year. It was one of my like 3 most used VHS tapes. And again, to all of the people that tell you have to do this or you have to do that. That's just ridiculous. And it's a cinema. We can like whatever we want. I can like all of the Dracula movies. I can like Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no choices. It's all for horror fans, you know. And the sooner that people start realizing that, the sooner we can get back to making cool monster movies.
Yeah, because I like both versions of it. I like the new one, but I still like the miniseries. So they're different.
Same.
But
well,
there's
the cool
actually some
thing
things about the first one I like better, and vice versa. You know, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is like I think people are finally starting to hone in on and I promise this isn't, you know, I'm not setting the stage because I'm about to reboot Castle Freak, but I think people are finally starting to hone in on why would you do a reboot? Like, what's the reason? And generally the reason is, I think, if there were unexplored opportunities, you know, then sure, you know, let's see the concept through a new lens, you know. But then there are films that genuinely just do need to be left alone. You know, there's a lot of perfect films out there. Like, I really don't understand why John Landis's son is remaking American Werewolf in London, his father's film. Like, you know what? Why don't you just make a sequel that's badass instead of the sequel you made that sucks? Right. You know, like there's no reason that you have to go renaming characters and, you know, or reestablishing new people to play old. You know, I just don't get it. But you know, each their own. I suppose that makes me a hypocrite because I'm about to reboot Castle Freak. But
right. No, I agree with you because I mean, there's a lot of remakes I like, but then there are movies that like you think like you know, this. It just doesn't need remake. I did think that about Suspiria, but I actually really liked the remake of Suspiria. So, but I
haven't seen it yet, but I heard it was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. I thought it was awesome. But beforehand, I was like, it's not really about the plot. It's about like the atmosphere. So why would you remake it? But you know, they did something different with it, and I loved it.
Well, see, that's the thing, man. It's almost like it's like a band covering a song. You know, you get the option to, you know, to obviously, you know, pay respects to what was your inspiration, but this is the way I see it. This is the way I would do it. This is the way I would make it look. You know, it's you know, everything is a canvas, man. Everything is art, and you know, cinema is no different. It's just, you know, like, if you're going to do it for the right reasons. You know, like, you know, I don't think Ninja Turtles should have nostrils. That's just me. You know what I mean? I don't think that they should be the size of freaking cars. But that's just me. You know, I'm thinking of practical things like how the fuck do they fit through the sewer cap in the street? But you know, that's just me. You know, everybody has their inspiration and their reasons for why they do it. But you know, that's the great thing about art, man. Is it's art with or without us.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said about it, I really like the new Pennywise, but it doesn't mean like I don't like the Tim Curry Pennywise. They're just a different take on it. I can't really say one's better than the other. I think they're both wild.
I think a perfect example is, have you seen the new trailer for The Joker?
Yeah.
Oh my God, man! Like, I mean, how lucky are we that we've gotten to see all of these incarnations of that character, and like, man, I have a feeling that Joaquin this is like Oscar shit for him. I have a feeling that this is going to be the film that takes comic book oriented concepts and shows the world how you can treat them realistically. You know, I know that, you know, the Batman series has done it to a degree. I mean, it's still very comic booky, you know, it's still very much suspend, you know, all elements of disbelief. But there are so many grimy, dirty stories in comics, and the Joker's is one of them, especially The Killing Joke, that to see them coming at it from that sort of, you know, king of comedy, like Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese sort of lens, man, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Because, I mean, fundamentally, man, all comic book stories are founded in some sort of tragedy. You know, there's never some silver spoon superhero like, I was a rich kid and I never had any problems. And now I'm trying to fight for good. No, dude. It's like they're all built on tragedy. And that's so terribly underexplored, you know? So, I can't wait to see where Joaquin goes with this, man. I feel like he's going to go like full Nicolas Cage drinking vodka in Mandy on this, you know?
Yeah.
All the dedication.
Yeah, it looks amazing. When I just saw like the stills before the screener came out, I was like, wow, this looks really good. I know it's just a still. What can you really get from a still? But it looked, and then when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh yeah, this looks amazing.
Well, that's Joaquin, man. Joaquin, there are certain talents out there that can make you feel something in a frozen static frame. You know, he's that guy. Like he does little things with his lips and eyebrows and, you know, just blinks, and like, he has so many like subtleties about his performances. Like, man, he's a master of his craft, and honestly, we're super lucky to have him in this role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, where can you? I know you mentioned. I think you mentioned your website earlier, but where's the best place for people to follow you?
You know, I'm terribly uninterested in social media.
All right.
So, but I mean, it is out there, and I do use it time to time. You know, I'll throw some pictures up of some stuff I'm working on. Definitely, there will be some stuff. You know, once Castle Freak gets rocking, you know, there'll be plenty of like news and information on Instagram, which is just Tate Steinsiek. Twitter at IllWilledFX. But the primary way to see me and my work and what's going on, that's illwilled.com. It's ILLWILLED.com.
Very cool. Well, I loved having you here. It was a great time. I had a great time talking with you.
Yeah. No, that was fun, man. We talked about a lot of things that I don't normally get to talk about when being interviewed. So yeah, I appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. And hope people check out Puppet Master Littlest Reich. It's on Shudder. And is it on Blu-ray and DVD yet?
Yeah, you can get it at Walmart, man. Puppet Master big time now.
Oh, very cool. So you can get it anywhere. So get out.
Yeah, Amazon. You can go to Walmart. There's some really great behind the scenes on the Blu-ray where you can watch us in the makeup and effects world, doing our best to kill people properly for all of you.
Very good. And I'm glad that you brought up cutting heads off a lot, because it really fits in with the Station of Decapitation.
Hey, man, I promise it wasn't intentional, but see, everything worked out, man. But we're all friends blood.
All right, very good. And I'll definitely have you back for when Castle Freak's about to come out or is out, or when we can talk about it more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's you know, there's some stuff coming up, and there's going to be some information dropping soon. So feel free to circle back with me anytime. I had a really good time speaking with you.
All right, very cool. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care, buddy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
How you doing? This is Lance Henriksen, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.